after. Bob, do you want to start recording? Thank you, sir. Thanks everybody for taking the time to connect today. I'm Josh Reynolds with Microsoft, an account executive serving the education space for New York State. Also on the Microsoft team. Bob, you want to say hi?
Hi, Bob Carazani, account technology strategist here.
Amy, do you want to say hi as well? She doesn't. I didn't.
Oh, hey guys, sorry, I was on mute.
No problem. I didn't want to put pressure on you. I didn't think it was a big ask. Just teasing. Today on the call we have a great Microsoft partner, Commvault, which a lot of folks on the call already probably have familiarity with. We have some new offerings, partnership with Commvault. And we wanted to get it in front of some folks today. We're also, just so everybody knows, we're recording this, so there will not be any NDA material shared on this call. If you have any questions and we need to share information that we can't share without NDA, we'll just stop recording. And I wanted to hand it over to the Commvault team to do some introductions of themselves. Andrew, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks very much for the introduction. My name is Andrew Wozny. I'm been at Commvault for 2.5 years, and I'm responsible for the alliance between Microsoft and Commvault in Canada and the northeast of the United States, all the way down to Virginia. So it's a role that Commvault built out because we have a lot of partnership with Microsoft. I'm also joined by Schenk, who is my SE that we work with very closely and collaboratively. And he will be doing a good portion of his presentation moving forward. So thank you for joining also, Keith.
Oh, thank you.
We're going to talk to you today about Commvault and Microsoft and how we integrate extremely well with Azure, both in an on-prem environment, a cloud environment, hybrid, or just a plain cloud environment completely in Azure. We can work in pretty well any environment we need to in that respect. So Keith will dive into that a little further. I'm just going to go down into a little bit of who Commvault is. I'm not going to take too much time on this.
Andrew, before we get started, with just a couple people on the call, are you guys existing Commvault customers, or is Commvault new to you? Because that kind of might drive the discussion on how we approach presenting this material. Don't be shy.
Hi, this is Papa from UVAR. I'm not exactly sure. I'm on the Unix team, so I'm not exactly sure how Commvault is used. I know we get daily email reports about Commvault being backing up our servers.
Okay, so you are a Commvault user somewhere in your environment.
Yes.
And Daniel?
Same org, I think.
Yeah, Dan
Are you guys from the same place?
Yeah, we're from the same place.
Okay, awesome. We can really tailor this directly to you guys then.
Awesome.
Hey, sorry, I was muted. Yeah, I work with Papa, and we use that for our daily backups for VM.
Okay, so I'll just continue on. Just a quick snapshot of who Commvault is. $650 million company in terms of revenue for FY 2017. 2,700 employees. We've been around for about 22 years. I'll go over that stuff. I skimmed over it. I think the key things that you want to see here are the last two bullets. Our growth is 100% organic under a single code base. We've never acquired a company. We've never added in anybody else's code. So it's all built in-house and built tailored to what we feel the market needs based on our customer response and customer needs. We have a 97% customer support satisfaction rate. I can honestly say that our support teams are phenomenal. They go above and beyond, and our customers rate us annually, and 97%. Benchmark in the industry is around 82%. So we're pretty comfortable that our support is strong. For any of those who follow the analysts in our markets in the IT world, both Gartner and Forrester have placed us very high in the leaders quadrant and the performance quadrant From a Gartner standpoint, this is our 7th year in the leader position. So for those of you who do follow this and would like to get any reading, you can go either to Gartner or Forrester, or if you want to connect with Keith and I, we can get you those reports also. But I think it's pretty compelling from a third party to be talking about Commvault in such a strong manner. From a Microsoft perspective, this is not a fly-by-night or a brand new opportunity that we've worked together. We've been together for a little over 19 years in terms of co-sell engagements. For Azure directly, we've already been supporting and working directly with Microsoft's cloud Azure for 9 years. From a Microsoft perspective, I guess the proof is in the pudding. They use our product for Xbox. They currently have 280 million accounts that are being protected by Commvault. Their Office dev team uses Commvault to support their efforts. And actually, there are portions of Microsoft Azure teams that are using Commvault as a backup and data management engine. If you are inclined to, there is a Commvault 60-day trial on the Azure Marketplace. It can be downloaded without any need for hardware. So that's something if you want to ask more questions about later on, Keith and I will gladly talk to you about that so you can get started. From a customer standpoint, you guys, your needs are constantly evolving. There's proprietary hardware costs that are high. Frequently, you guys have low cost of entry, but as the product evolves for expansion, maintenance, new licensing, the costs get exorbitantly high. In terms of recovery mandates, you guys are challenged with always having data on. Zero downtime is almost becoming the norm, and SLAs are getting smaller. From a traditional backup standpoint, everything's getting digitized, and it often needs management. And it's also siloed under multiple hardware platforms, applications, or OSs even. From a standpoint of getting value from your data, why does your data just sit in a box somewhere or sit on a storage center sometimes? Commvault can give you the capability to access it and do more with your data from an analytics standpoint or from our content store, serving it up to Microsoft's analytics capabilities and letting them work with the data that Commvault has already indexed. From a collaboration standpoint, I'm sure you guys are asked from an IT standpoint frequently, can you get me that file that I deleted, or can you find me that email? Commvault has the capability to allow limited use of how users can access data that they may have lost. It takes away some of the workloads in your department and gives you time to focus on other products and other workloads that you need to manage. From a regulatory and compliance risk standpoint, we are able to manage data from start to finish. So from the beginning of its life cycle to the end of its life cycle. It can be workflowed, it can be automated, so that once you set limits and parameters, you don't have to watch that data on a daily basis or a weekly basis. The job is done for you. And here we're going to get into the platform portion of Commvault because it is a platform. So as you go through this presentation, we really want you to look at how Commvault is a data management platform. We've been doing backup for over 20 years. Backup is our bread and butter. There's no doubt about it that we've made our life on backup. But as a solution and as a platform, we've evolved substantially to manage your entire data from A to Z, whatever application, whatever platform it's on, and whatever media you're using. It's important to look at it as we go through this presentation because a lot of our competition frequently talks about single point solutions. So managing the edge or managing endpoints, managing VMs. But each one is a disparate solution versus Commvault, who can package it all together in a single platform. So just to give you an idea of what it looks like from some of our competitors' standpoint, you can see from this slide that our data protection and recovery, information retention and governance, desktop, laptop, and endpoint, dedupe and compression, with a Commvault and Microsoft Azure solution, you can have everything in one platform. Well, two platforms managed by Commvault. If you look at some of our competitors and the purchases they've done over time, they've purchased point solutions, and they've had to piece it all together to provide a holistic or an attempt at a holistic data management platform. So as we're going through the presentation, as Keith moves into his slides coming up, we really want you to look at Commvault as a platform for data management. Don't just look at it as a backup, because that's something we've been doing for over 20 years. So I'll let Keith go with the next slides, and he'll be talking about how we do that from a little more of a technical standpoint and why Commvault does what it does and how it does it. Go ahead, Keith.
Thank you, Andrew. So we're a small group, so are you guys only using us for backup today, or are there other componentries that you see a use for? So Papa, you just say you get the reports on the Unix side, but Daniel's running the product?
We have another user, Terry Ingerson, who uses it mostly, who sets everything up.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so this might be relevant to you then. Just kind of explain the platform as a whole and expand on what Andrew was speaking about as to what we do. So we are not a point solution. We're not a one-trick pony that does just backup or just VMs or just archive. And it starts with this construct called the content store. The content store is this single virtual repository that is made up of, click a couple times, Andrew, is made up of disk, it's made up of tape, it's made up of cloud. These are storage repositories within the content store, and the star represents what's coming down the road. Now, whatever the next storage medium is that becomes mainstream, it's just going to be, we'll be able to write to it. We'll just add it to the content store. Now, within the content store, click please, you have the ability to tier between these different storage platforms. So we can perform deduplication, we can perform encryption, we can do compression, all within the content store itself, and tiering data between them and creating rules that says go from disk to tape, or from disk to cloud, or from cloud to cloud. Make multiple copies of the data however you see fit, with another construct that we have called policies. Policies define where the data is going to go and how long do you want to keep it there. And you create as many of these policies as you need to meet your storage and data management requirements, whether it be backup, that's the traditional workload, the VMware backups, file system backups, Unix backups, anything that we have an agent for, anything, is essentially cloud enabled, because the cloud is part of the content store. So if I have an agent for an SAP server, I have an agent for an Oracle server, I have an agent for an I-Series IBM mainframe, that stuff's all cloud ready now, because if we have an agent for it, we can send it to the content store, and we can tier within the content store however we see fit. So we have solutions for backup. We have solutions for archive. And not archive in the sense of I'm making my monthly tape, I'm going to keep it for 7 years. That's just long-term backup. I'm talking archive in the sense of let's identify things based on where they are, what they are, how old they are, who owns them, and move them from your Tier 1 storage out to Tier 2 or Tier 3 within the content store. So I can send it to the disk in the content store, I can send it to the cloud in the content store, and archive it. And generally we replace the source with a stub file, so the end user still has access to it. In the case of medical images, we do archiving against that and leave stubs so that we can still reference the files, but it's no longer consuming the expensive Tier 1 storage. We're using lower cost disks in the back end. We have integration to the snapshot engines of 30 plus array vendors that are out there. Yes, the arrays are still doing the snapshots, but now I have a single interface, a single portal to manage those snapshots. So now I start to get some efficiencies by combining backup and archive and snapshot management. Let's do snapshots every 15 minutes to meet an RPO, yet every snapshot that occurs at 5 p.m. I'm going to process as a backup job also. something like that. Whatever rules you want, whatever schedules and SLAs you want to meet, when we combine all these technologies together, that drives up the efficiencies and reduces your cost, because I don't have silos of products to do these various things. Now, I'm not running a NetApp array with snapshots and managing it with a snapshot management tool or scripts. I'm doing it all within the same products. We have the ability to drive logs into the content store. Let's go scrape logs from wherever, routers, servers, whatever generates logs, machine learning information, machine code. Send that into the content store. Why? Of course, it's all there for backup and recovery purposes, but the analytics and content search piece, getting data out of the content store and using it for more than just restore capabilities. Let's feed the information. This is a product that's can touch everything in your environment. I have agents that talk to live machines, and I have the content store of the history of a machine. Well, beyond just restore, let's feed it into an analytics engine, and let's ask business questions about the data. I can run analytics against a file system and do pretend what-if scenarios for archive and see what my disk savings will be if I use these settings. I can run analytics against the log files and begin some root cause analysis to find a problem, or search for common words or event codes across multiple products. Yes, there are products that do that, and that goes back to the prior slide where there are point solutions that do one thing and they do it very well. But that's that concept of starting to drive up cost and down efficiencies because you have multiple products that do all those different things. The edge products, we have solutions for desktops and laptops, and that may not be within your purview for your particular job description, but edge devices for schools, maybe you bring your own, but you don't have to worry about it, but the data is very important. But if you're providing devices, we could do GPS tracking of devices and remote wipe and those kinds of things from an edge perspective. Still, it's just an agent, and the data is going into the content store. Everything is cloud ready. Multiple access to the data, either from an admin perspective to run the product, from an end user perspective to use the product, gives him access to what he specifically has ownership of as his own data set, or if he's doing VM provisioning within our product set, because we do that as well. Control where the VMs are going to be provisioned so that you don't spin up a really expensive Azure compute cycle for a dev test environment. We can control that with policies and grant those policies to the users who need them, and then they can then spin things up as they see fit. They can delete things. They can extend the life cycle of something. They can actually remote RDP right into it from their list of servers that they have. And again, yes, there are products that do that as well. But again, it's a matter of driving up efficiencies and reducing costs. The search interface, that may not be of interest to you guys either, but all that data that's in the content store, I have captured and scraped the metadata about that information, the who, the what, the when, and the file name. But I can also scrape the contents of text files and Word files and Office documents and feed it into a search engine for legal purposes or for anybody's purposes. We can scrape metadata off of a video file and plug it into a search engine so you can find your video files on a frequent basis. A lot of our governments like to do that for police video files and things like that. Colleges will probably have something similar to that from a video perspective. Tie that into an archiving solution where those video files are sitting on expensive tier 1, maybe tier 2, but you have to keep 90 days worth or 180 days worth, or you have to keep it forever. Well, why keep it spinning on expensive disk? Let's ship it up to the cloud and put it on cheaper disk, and then provide a search engine for it as well. So that's kind of the platform in a slide. There's a lot more to it. It's way, way beyond just backup, even though that may be just what you're using it for, and that's primarily what we sell it for. But telling the story of what else it can do unlocks customers' thought process of trying to solve a problem with a tool set, in your case you already own, that could potentially solve it for you with the tools you already have, instead of going and buying something new. So what we're going to talk about after this is just the common use cases we see when we're working with cloud. So we'll go to the next slide, Andrew. Or any questions on that before we move on to the actual Commvault and Azure common use cases?
Nope, well said.
Okay. Okay, so we've defined these use cases on your journey to the cloud. Are you guys in the cloud now, thinking about the cloud? Do you have a quote-unquote cloud initiative?
Yeah, I think we do. We're starting to play around with Azure AD and Office 365 and AWS as well. So.
Okay. So Commvault does write to, I think, 30-plus cloud vendors, and we have the APIs to talk to the cloud right within our product. So you already own the product, so you already own the ability to write to the cloud and talk and communicate with the cloud without buying an appliance device. So the 5 use cases that we were to talk about, the top one is backup and archive to the cloud. It's the low-hanging fruit. I have a backup I do locally, and I send an off-site copy either to another disk somewhere else off campus or in another building, or I send it to tape. So let's go to the next slide. All right, so this is the low-hanging fruit. Backing up and archiving to Azure. Why Commvault? Because we can get a fast time to value, because you can be up and running in Azure in under a couple minutes. I have a video out there called 2 Clicks to the Cloud. You can search for it on YouTube, and it walks through how you set up a cloud library. It's a matter of plugging in your storage account credentials into the Commvault Disk and Library tool, and boom, you got a cloud library, and it becomes part of the content store and becomes part of a valid target for any of your policies. You might have a policy that does a local backup for 30 days, and that's all it does. Maybe it has a tape copy, but instead of the tape copy and or in conjunction with a tape copy, I can make a cloud copy. It's as easy as that. So we can preserve the dedupe footprint because we are the dedupe engine. So sending data to the cloud, you don't want to send it in its raw size. We want to send it in its smallest footprint. So we want to leverage Commvault deduplication and only send dedupe block sizes to the cloud. And when we do incrementals, it's just going to be the change rate from a dedupe block size perspective rather than a file size perspective. And again, any agent that we have is cloud ready, any of them. That's kind of key. We access all 3 tiers of the archive of the blob space, the hot, the cool, and the archive tier. And again, you can set up policies within Commvault to tier between them, or one for each if you need to report on the consumption of hot and cool and archive. If I have 3 distinct libraries defined, that's pretty easy to determine what the consumption rate is, so you can estimate costs, again, or push that into the analytics engine to foresee costs and trending analysis and forecasting. Recovery options, those are pretty inherent. If you're already a Commvault user, we can restore the data anywhere. Since the library, the blob library is just a storage target to us, it's nothing really special. It's just a target. I can recover from that just as if it was disk to anywhere. It looks exactly, well, it doesn't look the same, but it is the same under the covers as far as the ability to recover to the same server, recover to a different server, recover to a different folder structure. All of that remains the same. Then tape, are you guys a tape shop for your long-term stuff? I'll go to the next slide there.
I'm honestly not sure on that. Yeah.
Okay. So this first use case, the easiest way to get this is the low-hanging fruit, is making a copy to the cloud, is to replace tape. And usually the argument is, hey, my tape's been working, tape is a lot cheaper than cloud. But a lot of people forget about the hidden costs of tape. You know, there's the acquisition, the service costs, the replacement, the management, the media costs, tape efficiency. Are you storing tapes or using tapes that only have 25% of the data on there and you're just a lot of wasted space for the rest of it? Just daily management tasks of unloading and offloading, and whether or not these tapes are even viable after a couple of years, whether or not the data is still resilient on them. So those are some of the risks associated with it as well. Are you aware if you have a DR plan? Do you show up at a location with a box full of tapes?
I know we have a DR plan for a subset of the Unix servers, but I'm not sure about the Windows servers.
Okay. So quick ones there, Andrew. So I know you're not the person for this, but as this is recorded, I would express anybody who's watching this, if they feel that tape is cheaper than cloud, is to work with your teams to work out the cost. Don't just assume that tape is cheaper. In most cases it's not, especially with the advent and consumption of the archive tier within Azure. That stuff is really, really cheap and it's cost effective in a major way. Next slide. The second use case, and these use cases you'll see as we go through this kind of build on each other. The first use case being, let's just make a copy to Azure. The second use case being DR to Azure. So let's click again. So if I already have a copy of my data in Azure for just offsite storage purposes, it's pretty darn easy to turn that into my DR copy as well. A lot of companies have a DR model where they own the DR location in an offsite facility. However, the servers that are populated, if there are servers there, they have to be maintained, and they're generally not brand new servers. They're generally the servers left over from the last refresh. So they're not the greatest things. So they might have their own inherent problems. DR in the cloud, or leveraging storage in the cloud and compute in the cloud, is a pay-as-you-go model. And you're always going to get the latest and greatest OSs. I'm sure you can change your OSs as far as your app is OS specific. But CPU, RAM, if something's not fast enough, you can just bump it up. If something's too fast, you can slow it down. You can turn them off and stop consuming money. So DR in the cloud is an incredibly cost-effective solution as far as the ability and the agility to actually do a DR test. Now, I spoke to a company that does, and you can pretty much throw a dart at somebody who has a tape DR solution. If they even do a DR exercise, and that's few and far between, but they're going to show up at their facility, their DR facility, with a box full of tapes, or they're going to ship them there and get them there themselves. So they have to physically go to the DR facility to do DR testing. And now they've got a shoebox full of tapes, and they have to pretty much rebuild their environment from tape. Yes, that's how we used to do it in the old days, but it took a long time. And the success rate was iffy at best, because tape has its own inherent problems, and servers have their own inherent problems, and runbooks are never accurate as far as doing DRs for runbooks, which is why we do DR tests, so we can still annotate and update things. But as software evolves and service packs come into play, the DR process changed. So the ability and the agility to do DR almost on the fly, or a sporadic DR, a targeted DR for specific use systems for data that's already in my cloud site, my quote-unquote cloud site, and I can leverage Azure Compute, you can almost, and you probably can, automate the entire process. So within our product set, we also have this construct called workflows. It's in your product today that you can, if you find yourself doing repetitive tasks, onboarding a user, spinning up a dev test lab, doing recoveries to refresh something, you can automate that process and create a button for it, and publish it, and click on it, and maybe it asks you a couple questions, but you can automate the whole process. And usually if there is a real DR event, the likelihood of you going back to your data center is diminished somewhat. If it's running in the cloud and it's very efficient in the cloud, why go through all the efforts? You have probably insurance companies paying for your DR and rebuilding your data center, but maybe it might be better just leave it in the cloud. Key thought processes. So DR events often lead to actual migration, which is the next use case. So we'll go to the next slide. Next slide. Workload portability and application migration. So your cloud, quote-unquote, cloud initiative may be, I'm going to move a part of my data center to the cloud. I'm going to move my entire data center to the cloud. Workload portability. So we do VMware protections. We do a copy of it that goes up to the cloud for DR purposes. But we have workload portability within some of our agents that allows me to take a VM image, even a Hyper-V image, and restore it and convert it to an Azure Compute instance and establish a synchronization between my on-prem and my cloud copy for business continuous purposes. So I can be continually updating and refreshing my cloud version that might be for BCS purposes, but might be for the actual migration purposes. So the Commvault product can manage and protect the on-prem process, can manage and run the migration process, and can manage and run the targeted cloud copy migration. So one product can do the protection, the migration, and the protection on the end. And you can automate that, because that's just workflow as well. It's repetitive tasks that you do over and over and over. Excuse me for a moment. Okay. So dev testing, provisioning, life cycles, these are things that are part and parcel of our product as well. We have predefined workflows that do some of the stuff for you. You just need to change some of the parameters to help do this. VM migration, database migration, and app migration. So I talked about VMs. I can actually migrate and do this migration from Hyper-V, VMware, and from Amazon. Amazon data's servers I can run into Azure space and convert them as well. Oddly enough, I don't have the go back to Amazon yet, but I do have failover and fail back capabilities for just on-prem data. So from a BCS perspective, failed over, fail it back. I can do power management as well, because if a server is running, that's when it's, the dollar signs are running. So we can control power management as well, so we can control those costs built into the product. Database migration, we have agents for SQL, agents for Oracle, agents for SAP. So we can do the cross-server restores. So you on the Unix side, are you just Unix servers, or are you running a database environment as well?
We have Linux servers, and then we have Linux database servers too.
Okay. So it's possible that we can assist with migration of those up to the cloud as well. Next slide. And then, so we're talking about, so now we're in the cloud. So data protection for platform as a service and infrastructure as a service. These would be your Azure Compute instances, which to us, in traditional sense, is just another server. So I can just slap an agent on it, treat it like another server, and back it up within the cloud if I so desire. Stand up a media agent in the cloud on an Azure Compute instance that's talking to blob space, and do backups of it. And it doesn't look we don't treat it any differently than any other server because it's just another data center to us. But we can also treat that as since it's a VM running in Azure, I can treat it as a VM running in Azure as well, and do block level protections of the server as a whole, leverage and integrate with the snapshot capabilities of Azure. So I can snap that box every whatever and process that snapshot as a backup. And if I went back 6 slides to my content store slide, one of the key things that we do with data and what kind of makes us stand out from everybody else is the indexing that we perform on the data. We've spent years perfecting our indexing algorithms. So I can do an index of a snapshot and give you file level recoverability from that snapshot, preserving the context of where it came from and preserving the context when I restore it. Even if it's cross-platform restore, I can still preserve the structure if I so desire. So it's huge. Being able to support Azure SQL, serverless databases that are running in the cloud, or SAP or Oracle, those platform databases that are running within the cloud that there's nowhere to install an agent, but I can communicate to them through my API and still provide application-aware protection with log management of those platforms as well. So Commvault as a whole can do and be a hybrid model that do on-prem and cloud, as well as a full cloud deployment. It doesn't matter to us. We're completely cloud aware. Next slide. The final use case is, and I think Daniel mentioned this, you guys are doing an O365 initiative. So O365 comprises Mail, OneDrive, and SharePoint as a services. And I'm actually seeing this in a lot of our customers. O365 migration is huge. A lot of customers are doing this. And yes, O365 kind of takes care of its own backups, but in the sense of, I think it's deleted item retention. And the max retention that I'm aware of as of today are these that are listed on the left there, the 93 days and 30 days from a recoverable perspective. But that's not to say this data still doesn't need protection and backup. Again, why do we do that? Well, it's protect ourselves from end-user deletion or a ransomware attack, something that wipes out. Ransomware and email is becoming real. And any recovery from a ransomware attack of any kind is a restore. That's the only way you're going to get back from it. And we can do early detection of ransomware so that we can trigger an action based on an alert. That action might be trigger a restore, or send a letter to somebody, an email to somebody, to call the team ready, get them ready to go. We also have an e-discovery module back on the content search, our content store slide. I said using your data with feeding it into an analytics engine or into a search engine. Yes, O365 has search capabilities, and it's pretty darn good. Ours is also pretty darn good, but ours is federated. I can search anything I feed into it from the content store from any agent and have one place to search all of that data. OneDrive data, home data, user directory data, NAS data, anything I feed into it, I can search from a single repository. And that search can be for legal, it could be for HR, it can be an end user just searching for his own stuff, because he would have a role-based credentials, because we're AD integrated, to only be able to search and find what he has ownership over. And even ownership over a particular time frame. Maybe I had ownership over it 2 months, but now I don't. But I would still be able to search that 2 month ago stuff within those time frames, because I can specify time frames. O365 does occasionally go offline. If email typically is the #1 app for companies, I would imagine colleges is pretty #1 app as well. Beyond, I think payroll would be the next one. But when it does go offline, I don't know if they're just blimps or not, but we do provide the ability to have offline access to your email as well. If I'm protecting it and it's sitting in my content store, I can actually mount the mailbox and access it as if it was my mailbox and function out of it as a mailbox as well. That wraps up my use cases. So next slide. How do we get into a summary here? Oh, we'll talk about latest technology. So DataBox, if you're starting your cloud journey now and your thought process is, how do I get this initial load up to Azure? I've got 100 terabytes of data I need to send to Azure. How am I going to do that? Well, you can certainly do it over the wire. It might take a while. You might have a fast link and it won't take a while. But even from a dedupe perspective, the very first seed copy is going to be at best 50%, because there's not going to be any dedupe on the first copy. The dedupe comes on the subsequent copies. So the DataBox is a brilliant service they have where you sign up for it, they ship you a box, we do local backups to it, we ship the box back to Azure, and they upload it for you so you can do your seeding, and we just synchronize from there on after. We 100% support the DataBox. The DataBox, I think, is still in preview mode, but I think it's going to go GA very quickly. We support the Azure Archive blob storage now. We talked about that. Azure Stack is essentially cloud in a box. If you want to have Azure-like functionality without actually talking to Azure, you can get an Azure Stack, which is a server that lives at your environment that looks like Azure. So we 100% support that as well, because it looks no different to us than a real Azure. Azure Managed Disk might have been of import to Daniel when he was on, because it's a VM kind of thing. I think Managed Disk has been around for a while, but our support for it is only recent because we didn't have access to the APIs to even see the Managed Disk. So Managed Disk is it's a VM component where you can, I think it's just a send provisioned VM or disk library that can grow and shrink as you see fit. And we just couldn't see them before, but we 100% support them. We see them now. So that's good to go. Next. So summarizing your journey to the cloud. Generally 3 phases. You're going to move your data up there. We talked about how we can move the data. All of the agent types, and that's just a small sampling of the agent types that we have down there. Our online documentation.commvault.com kind of goes through all of the agents. Well, it does go through all the agents that we support. Everything is cloud ready from a Commvault perspective if I have an agent for it. So getting data to the cloud, moving to the cloud, using it in the cloud. The cloud becomes an extension of your data center, whether it's for DR, whether it's for dev test, whether it's for business continuance. Moving it up there and starting to use it. Again, that whole concept of Commvault's not just a backup company. I've got the data. Let's use it for something else. All those things that are problems you may have that you're trying to say, how do I solve this? How do I build a new DR environment? How do I make a copy? Well, I got to call the backup guy and say, hey, can you do this restore for me? Those are repetitive tasks. We can start using the data in different ways, feeding it to those analytics engines, feeding it to the search engine, and a whole lot of other things that we could do as well that we can have offline discussions on. And then once it's up there is to manage that data, manage your applications that are running in Azure, allowing you to have a single solution that does your hybrid model as a whole. And the final slide is a pointer to the, one more, Andrew. we have you're already a customer, but we have I'll go back. We have a 60-day trial in the Azure Marketplace. There's the URL to get to it. Or if in your stores account, you could just add a VM and search for Commvault, and you'll find it. And it's a fully functioning 60-day trial of Commvault running within Azure. That wraps up what I have.
Thanks, Keith, especially battling through some dry throat there. Do you guys have any questions? Any comments?
I have a question pertaining to the analytics portion of Commvault. Could you just give a brief overview on that? Just a quick 5-second, how does it work, what you can do with it?
So we index the data, as I mentioned before. So I have an index, I have the data, and I have an index of the data. And now I can start plugging it into an analytics engines to start cross-referencing data sets and asking questions of the data. So an example might be we had a local government that had to prove, there's a lawsuit, and somebody got hit by a car or for some reason at an intersection. So they had to say, well, what's happened at this intersection for the last 30 days, and what's the trending has been? So they have the sidewalk database, they have the traffic light database, they have the pavement database, they have multiple databases that had something to do with this intersection. So we're able to query all these different databases with the analytics tools and provide a search interface that says I just plug in a time frame and an intersection, and it'll come out and spit out everything that happened at this location from all these different sources of data, whether they be SQL, whether they be Oracle, whether they be a text file, whether they be an HTML location. Well, that's the kind of the power of using the data. And yes, there are tools that do that. And yes, there are SQL database guys who spend all day long writing scripts to export all this stuff and applications that do all that. But again, it's what level of effort do you want to put into that when you have a tool that can do it for you already, and I've already got the data. So pretty much...
Keith, can we also serve that data up to Microsoft's analytics engines also and their analytics capabilities? Can we serve that filtered data over to them so that they can do analytics faster?
I can't say yes, but I can't say no either. Yes, we can export the data. Yes, we have API calls. The answer is probably, but I can't categorically say yes, we can do that.
I think the answer is that yes, we can ingest that data and work with it, and there are benefits to both approaches.
Yeah, I was actually gonna answer with probably as well. I think that's a very, very safe answer.
But it's one of the new exciting pieces of our code. And again, this is all, we didn't acquire somebody to do this. We're writing it ourselves. The engines are built into it. In fact, if you go to our documentation site, it says, there's a search engine. It says, powered by DataBox. And there's a link. DataBox is the analytics engine that drives all this. And I wasn't able to present, so I can actually show you some of the things, but I can do that offline because I wasn't able to present through this interface. Or we can have an offline demo or an integration with the specialists in that field as well. And again, it's that my goal is to get you thinking about your environment and where you maybe want some help to do something. Then have that discussion that says, what are you trying to accomplish, and how might we be able to help you? I can either straight say it out and I can't help you, or hey, you know what? If we do this, we start thinking outside the box. I could put something together with the product you already own to accomplish that. That's where it gets exciting for me as an engineer.
Awesome. That was a perfect answer. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you guys. Thank you so much, Andrew. Thank you so much, Keith. This is really interesting information. I love to, and it's great to we know that the University of Rochester is having a good experience, so this might be an interesting technology to try and leverage. We appreciate the overview of all the information. Another thing to note is that for certain workloads in Azure, you can often leverage Microsoft funding. So we have a funding bucket called eSIF. So in the case if this is something you have interest in, feel free to reach out, and we can see if we can help deploy some of these technologies leveraging some of the tools at Commvault. Is there anything else, Bob, that I'm missing? Andrew, that I'm missing? Keith?
I want to throw one more thing in there. I mean, we've talked about data management as a whole. What I didn't talk about, because this is an education for focus, but however, there's potentially a medical side of that education as well, especially for the people who might listen to this. And that we have a healthcare vertical, and we have healthcare solutions for PACS, or electronic health records programs. Are certified for some of those things. So don't discount us if you're in the clinical side of something. We have solutions for healthcare as well.
Great to know. Thank you. All right. Well, everybody, thank you for taking the time to connect today. It was time well spent, I think, and we'll share some information with both sides for next steps. I'm sure we have you guys have already given out email addresses, so in the case you need any follow-up, it's right on the calendar invite. But thank you so much, and have a great, hopefully not snowy rest of the week.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. You too.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.